What's up, everyone? It's Bo here, and we've got another X-Men TV talk. Now, earlier this week, I put out a video where I attempted to kind of whimsically point out that while X-Men 97 has been an absolute smash hit, one of the best things that Marvel has put out since Endgame, there was one little thing, a bit of a trope, that I saw occurring in this season that has been established in all of the Marvel MCU Disney Plus series. Well, at least most of them. And that's the idea that the heroes get kind of this comic book accurate costume glow up in the penultimate episode before going off to face the big bad. This hit me a kind of way because I grew up with the 90s series, and having all of the characters suddenly change costumes like almost all at once felt off. It felt forced, and therefore I felt the trope at play. I was kind of shocked to see how much pushback I got to critiquing this. And I think that this is one of those almost sort of Rorschach type of moments where it's gonna hit different people differently based on what your experience with the series is. Some people said, look, they're paying homage to the Pride of the X-Men. Those are literally the costumes that a lot of those characters wore in that series. And this is likely just kind of that homage for the conclusion of this season. They'll probably go back to the classic 90s era look next season. And if that's the case, awesome. I think that's incredible. Then other people were like, hey, no, this is the way that I remember the X-Men from the comic books or wherever it may be. And besides, comic book characters change costumes all the time. What's the big deal? And I'm glad you asked. Because we're not dealing with comic books, right? We're dealing with a cartoon show, a cartoon adaptation of a beloved comic book, yes, but one in which for 5 years, the characters wore the exact same costume that entire time. And even if you kind of make the assessment, right, you make all the logical observations of, well, the mansion got destroyed, they don't have their costumes, yada, yada, yada. Listen, the mansion got destroyed all the time, okay? At least once in the first season. I remember they're all chilling out in the wreckage of the mansion, doing repairs and rocking their normal costumes. But here's the thing. Because there's been so many different adaptations of X-Men, the way in which they're visually represented in these cartoon shows matters. It instantly helps you communicate to know what series this Wolverine is from versus this Wolverine versus this Wolverine versus this Wolverine. It means something. It's the way in which we kind of visually, iconically connect with the characters. And these are all, by the way, different characters. These are all different Wolverines with their own journeys, and it's all tied up into the way that we connect with them. So here's my theory. My thought is the way in which the costume change hits you is entirely based off of what your relationship with the original series was. For those of you who are younger, you're not as emotionally attached to the classic look of the 90s costumes. And that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. So the mindset that, hey, they're bringing in these classic iconic looks from, be it the comic books or Pride of the X-Men or wherever you may associate that look from, to you, that's awesome. And it kind of creates this mindset that this new X-Men 97 series is something new. And that's fair. We've already seen in 97, it's much more adult in tone than the kind of teenage energy of the 90s series. But then there's some of you that are older than I am. And for you, the comics is king. And so the mindset of this cartoon series, changing it up, switching out costumes, it means nothing to you. It's like, oh no, this makes sense. And I actually think it's really cool to see a lot of these costumes there. And that's fine too. You can have that opinion. Both of you, my elder and younger X fans alike, have every right to be totally cool, if not super excited about the notion, even the idea that these costumes can change. But see, here's the thing. I'm a millennial, guys. Those costumes were my childhood. I know the characters instantly based off the way they look. A lot of these characters we've got new voice actors for, who, by the way, are doing fantastic work. Some of them have the original voice actors, who, by the way, voices change over years, so I'm not going to critique that. I actually think it's really cool that a lot of the original cast is back, so I'm not going to sit here poking holes in that. But part of the way that your mind does the additional gymnastics to bring it all the way through is because you can instantly visually connect with the character, and so the voice thing kind of helps mentally fix itself. But the looks holistically, and I'll just go ahead and say Jean is probably the biggest one that's harder for me to get behind her as Marvel Girl. Now, granted, given the way that this last past episode ended, if we see Jean again, cards on the table, going all in, my guess is she's going to be coming back in more of a Phoenix-style look. The opening credits have been really good about seeding different things that we would see or different ideas that we would see throughout this entire series. And based off of that indication, my guess is we're looking at kind of a return of Phoenix Jean. I could be very wrong, but I don't think I am. Because I also think that we're leading towards a, X-Men versus Avengers in season 2, but I could be wrong. But at the same time, some of these characters I do think actually earned their costume change moment. And I do believe that earning the costume change is important. Storm in this season earned that costume change. She goes through this very specific journey and out the other end comes out to some extent reborn. And with that, the costume change makes sense. It's kind of a triumphant moment. I'm here for it. I think that's great. Rogue is going, rogue. Rogue's going rogue. So the idea of her changing costumes in this moment makes a ton of sense. I'm down with it. I think it's awesome. And for the rest of the crew, look, I think it looks awesome. I do think that they actually are rocking some pretty epic gear, but to me, it feels unnecessary. It feels like a trope and it feels forced. Especially when, for example, someone like Wolverine is shall we say, hitting a pretty big character moment in his life. I don't want to go berserk here, but just saying that if you're going to change up his costume, perhaps after this moment would have been the time to do it. That's all. So look, X-Men 97 is a classic. It is a triumph. It's incredible. And the people who were saying I was being nitpicky before, maybe. But at the same time, I don't think that I am. Because when it comes to comic book cartoons, the costumes matter. And there's nothing wrong with changing them. But those moments have to be earned and not feel like they're just fitting in with a studio mandate to change things up. And who knows, maybe this truly is just an homage for these few episodes. And if so, cool. I think that's actually kind of awesome. But there are still some that say that this is their attempt to really separate 97 from the 90s series. And I think you do that to your detriment. The value, the reason I believe that a lot of folks got behind this is because of the respect and love that picked back up an almost 20-year smoldering torch on the ground and reignited it for a whole new generation without sacrificing the fans that upheld the series as kind of the greatness that it was. All right, so those are my thoughts. I would love to hear yours as well. Go ahead and put them in the comments. Let's get into it. What are your favorite costumes? Am I way off? Am I still way off after kind of explaining this? And did I cover all my grounds here? Because, it's very possible that there's some way of looking at it that I have yet to see. And I would honestly be fascinated to hear your opinion. And also, if you made it this far, be sure in the comments to throw this in too, because I am curious for those that actually tune in and listen to everything that I have to say, because I get the sense that people saw the name and decided to comment without actually watching the video. So for those of you that did, for those of you that actually stuck around to the end, put in the comments, where do you think we're going in Season 2? Avengers vs. X-Men, A Return of Apocalypse, or are we doing Onslaught? Of the three, what do you think's the most likely? Put it in the comments. Let's talk about it.